Lunch and Learn webinar on wildfire safety and summer readiness. My name is Vanessa Becker and I'm with Douglas Public Health Network. And as usual, I'm going to go through a few logistics first. Your mics and your cameras will be turned off during this webinar. We are recording it, but please take notes. Please also use the chat function to ask questions. If you prefer to read closed captions, there's a button at the bottom of your Zoom screen that says to show captions. I will announce our next webinar for June at the conclusion of this one, but also just a reminder to watch our website for recordings and promotion for our future webinars. Please also watch your email after this webinar, as we will be drawing for 4 different baskets of great items related to wildfire preparation and resources. And so without further ado, I am delighted to introduce our speakers. We will hear first from Kelsey Scandle. Kelsey is a fire risk reduction specialist with the Oregon State Fire Marshal and will be speaking about how to prepare your home and property for wildfire. Our second speaker is our Undersheriff, Brad Odell, who will be speaking on emergency evacuation notices from the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. Our third speaker will be Rachael Pope, who is the Public Information Officer at DFPA, who will give us some context on fire season outlook and public use restrictions. And our last, but certainly not least speaker will be Alicia Christiansen, who is Associate Professor of Practice from OSU Extension Office. Alicia will be sharing information about fire-resistant plants for home landscapes. So please welcome our fabulous speakers, and I will hand it off to Kelsey.
Good afternoon. I'm Kelsey Scandle, and I'm going to wait for the presentation to pop up. I am a wildfire risk reduction specialist with Oregon State Fire Marshal. I'm here to talk about how to prepare your home and property for wildfire. Next. What is home hardening? Home hardening is, simply put, construction practices and construction materials that make your home more ignition resistant. So preventing your home from catching fire from flames and embers. Next. Embers cause 90% of structure fires during wildfires, not actual direct flames, and they can travel up to 5 miles ahead of a fire front. Next. These are examples of what embers can look like when they move into the built environment. We all know what embers look like when they come off of trees and bushes, but in this case on the left-hand side, that is a shingle from a roof. That can also be an ember when it moves into the built environment. And to the right is actually dimensional lumber that was carried by the wind in the Holiday Farm Fire of 2020. And as you can see, it's about maybe 1.5 feet tall and quite thick. But when it became charcoal, it got very light and was able to travel through the air. Next. Today, we're going to talk about, again, home hardening practices. And these are some of the topics we'll cover today. I am going to skip windows, but essentially, the guidance is to not use vinyl casing around windows because they can fail once they get too hot, and to use double panel windows. Next. This is a very brief video that shows how fire can travel easily through a fence. The fence can act like a wick for fire. What's really important here is that first 5 feet against your home should be of a non-combustible material. In this case, it is a metal fence. We recommend that if you have a gate that's up against your home that is wooden and you're told to evacuate, if you find yourself in an unfortunate situation where wildfire is nearby, is to prop that gate open with a rock that creates that 5-foot break against the fire and up against your home. Next. Let's talk roofs and gutters. Regardless of what the material your roof is made out of, keeping it clear of debris, dried sticks, dried leaves is really critical for preventing fires from catching onto the rooftop. Dormers and skylights are also really important to keep them clear around the corners where any of those little dry bits of debris and material can collect. Next, I'll show you what happens when your gutters are full. This should be routine maintenance around your home, maybe once or twice a year, making sure your gutters are clear. On the left-hand side is a still from a video from the Insurance Institute of Business and Home Safety, and it shows what can happen when gutters are full. These specifically are vinyl gutters, and so vinyl will fail again with enough heat and can cause more damage by creating more fire along the edge of your home. On the right-hand side is a metal gutter, but it's full of debris. And as you can see, it starts to melt away at a Class A roof. Class A refers actually to its fire resiliency. Class A is the highest resilience you can have against fire. Class B roof is somewhat resistant against fire. And Class C roof is pretty much you have a roof. Next. What the vent is covered with can make a difference. So this is vents underneath decks, vents, attic vents, crawl space vents. It's important that you have metal mesh screening that is 1/8 of an inch. And that example is all the way on the right side of this photo. If you're a golfer or have someone in your home who's a golfer, you can use a golf tee to test the metal mesh screening. The tee will go through 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch, but it'll stop at 1/8 of an inch. And again, this is to prevent embers from coming into your home. Co-benefit, it also protects against pests, which is also important. Next. Great. This is about siding, and this is really important about home hardening. On the left-hand side, you'll see a lot of dry debris and materials up against T111 siding, which is just basically plywood. That creates a hazard up against the home directly. In the top right, you've got brick, which is pretty good. And as you can see, there is vegetation that's closer to the home. We'll talk about defensible space here in a few minutes, but the first 5 feet around a home should be clear of anything that's combustible. In this case, this homeowner has chosen to keep plants up against their home because they do have more resistant brick and windows. And then in the bottom right-hand corner is an example of what can happen when siding starts to deteriorate. All of that exposed material is very dry, very brittle, and embers can come up against the home with wind and push up against that to cause a fire. When we think about embers travel horizontally with the wind, and when they hit the vertical side of your house, they drop and collect at the bottom, which is why we talk about the first 5 feet of defensible space being really important to create wildfire resiliency around your home. And then the first 6 inches of from the ground to where your siding starts should be of a material that's harder to catch fire, like cement fiber siding or cement cinder block. Next. This is a great example of an enclosed, or the enclosed deck is at the bottom. We recommend screening that off with 1/8 inch metal mesh screening, but in this case, the homeowner decided to completely close it off with metal, corrugated metal. This looks great. This is a very nice resistant deck. And on the right-hand side, it shows how also creating that 6 inches of space between the bottom of where siding can meet your house and putting metal flashing in there as a way to prevent embers from getting and nesting into those nooks and crannies right up against your house. Next. What is defensible space? So we talked about the house and home hardening and construction materials and practices. Now we're talking about outside the home. And really what's critical is the most critical is the first 5 feet around your home, being clear of anything that can catch fire. And as we move further away from the home, I'll show you examples of how else you can create wildfire resiliency based on some landscaping practices. Next. This is a great example. This photo comes from Firewise. And at the bottom left-hand corner of this graphic is all the best practices for defensible space and home hardening. So closer to the home, you don't have much around there that could catch fire. That's within the first 5 feet. As you go out to 5 feet to 30 feet, you want your lawn mowed down. You want to make sure your grass is below 4 inches and green. You want to start spacing vegetation so it's not one continuous fuel load, essentially. You want to create little islands of vegetation. And then as you get further out from the home, 30 to 100 feet, you're talking about the spacing of trees and tree limbs so that you don't have canopies that touch should wildfire get that close to your home. And in the top right corner of this graphic is, really all the worst case scenario you could have around your home for wildfire resiliency. Next. Again, further out from from your home, and if you do have larger mature trees, these are something to consider. You do want 10 feet of space between where the ends of the limbs are and to the rooftop of your home. You want to create 10 10 feet of space. We don't want limbs hanging over your roof. They can drop a lot of litter, whether that's leaves or needles, and create more maintenance for you. And also, should that catch fire, that can become a risk. If you have trees that are more mature and are over 18 feet, you want to limb up to the first third of the tree. That keeps the tree healthy, but also prevents the lower limbs from catching with ladder fuels. If it's under 18 feet, you want to cut or limb the first 6 feet of that tree. And again, distance is important. While not listed in this graphic, we also recommend having 10 feet of distance between a tree and any power line, utility lines. Next. I get this question a lot for planning for privacy. Arborvitae and some other kind of hedgerows that are planted right next to each other can again act like a wick and continue fire around your home. But we also know that we plant those things for privacy from our neighbors. And so instead of row planting, consider alternate planting, which is the example on the right-hand side, where you create 5 to 10 feet of distance between plants and then separate them with 2 rows instead of just one continuous row. That way you can create those gaps between some of the vegetation. Next. Tree spacing. If you have the luxury of having a larger property, again, that first 5 feet should be clear of anything that could catch fire. And then as you move further away from the home, consider those spacings. 5 to 30 feet, you should have tree clumps with the 18 feet of where I say trees touch hands, limb to limb. And then as you get further out from the home, they can be closer together, but still spread out so that you're not having a continuous fuel that takes you right up to the home. Again, this is another graphic from FireWise, which is a national certification for communities to be wildfire resilient. Next. We actually talked about this just before we hopped on the webinar and how critical bark mulches, needle mulch, those kinds of things. It's obvious that they're dry, they're brittle, they can catch fire. The important part is to remove them and keep them further away from the home. They shouldn't be within the first 5 feet. If you're looking for alternatives, you're looking for bare earth, green grass, pavers, rocks, but bark mulch creates an obvious hazard. And so we recommend it if you're going to use it further away from the house, and again, creating vegetation islands. Next. And these are other really important considerations as I finish up my home hardening and defensible space chat. Outdoor textiles. If you are going to be evacuated or you're leaving your home for vacation, consider moving those outdoor textiles indoors. They are very flammable. That includes outdoor furniture cushions, welcome mats. Welcome mats are typically right underneath a front door, and if they catch fire, they bring fire up underneath the doorway. So something to consider is removing those or putting them away and taking them inside. Make sure your address is visible and if you can see it from the road so that emergency responders can get to your home. Your firewood pile should be 30 feet away from your home. I typically recommend that if, in the wintertime, you can have that a little closer to the house, but certainly when it's fire season, making sure your firewood piles are covered and removed further away from the home. Cars, RVs, boats, and trash cans. There's quite a lot of petrochemical plastics that are going on in the construction of those things. Especially trash cans. And when they're up against a house, and if they were to catch fire, they create a hazard up against your home. So again, removing them from 5 to 10 feet out. If you have the ability to move RVs and boats further away from the home before you ever need to evacuate, that would also be create some resiliency for you. And then propane tanks, create defensible space around them, just like you do your home. And this is a really good example of pavers. It's at least 5 feet away from a structure, although we recommend 10 feet. And you don't have a wooden fence around it or vegetation that can catch fire around the propane tank. I'm going to be here for questions after all the other speakers have gone, so I'm happy to address them as they've come in through the chat.
Great. Thank you so much, Kelsey. We do have a couple questions, but we'll take those at the end. I'd like to introduce our very own Undersheriff, Brad Odell from the Douglas County Sheriff's Office to talk now. Hand it off
Hi.
to you, Brad.
Thanks, Vanessa. It's my honor and privilege to be here today and to speak with all of you and talk about evacuation notices and how that process works. We've talked about wildfire and the dangers that can bring to your home. But when the event happens, how do you get notified and how do you safely and efficiently evacuate your home? So that's what we're going to talk about today. But before I dive into the actual evacuation process and the different levels that are involved, I want to speak a little bit about being prepared prior to the emergency. I think that this is an area that is easy to overlook as community members. I know from time to time myself and my family have not done all of the things that we should do. And I think that it's important that we think about those things and that we talk them over with other members of our family and how we respond should the request to evacuate occur. And I think that, the first step in that process really is to begin the planning process with what do we need to survive? What is important? And I think that critical medications should be at the top of that list. Important documents such as birth certificates and passports and photo ID. Those are the types of things that we want to try to gather, recognize are going to be required in our emergency evacuation kit, identify those, and maybe even start a go kit and have that close by so that if that request ever comes, you're not scrambling last minute during the emergency trying to prepare to leave your home. So discussing that, having that go kit and your emergency evacuation plan already in place is a really good start. The other thing about evacuations is oftentimes we're aware that there's already some type of event happening in our community or near our homes. And it's important to recognize that if at any point in time you feel you're in danger, you do not have to wait for an official evacuation notice to leave your home. If you feel unsafe, it's highly recommended that you go ahead and evacuate to a different location and wait until authorities say that it's safe to return or you feel that the danger has subsided enough to where you can return home safely. So let's talk now about evacuations and the different levels. Next slide, please. In the state of Oregon and here in Douglas County, we use a system called Ready, Set, Go. It's also often referred to as level 1, level 2, and level 3 evacuations. And I'm going to break those down and talk about what should be happening at each of those levels. But again, if you can remember Ready, Set, Go, that's going to be the most important thing to remember and take away as far as evacuations that we discussed today. Next slide, please. All right, so level 1. This level 1 category really is to be aware that there's danger near your home and in the area and that you have already begun enacting your emergency plan. You want to stay informed, make sure that you have opted to receive emergency alerts with the county. We'll talk a little bit about that here in just a little while. But making sure you're staying plugged in to official sources, making sure that you're getting your information from reliable sources. Oftentimes, people are getting their information from social media, which can be a fabulous place to get information, but it's not always accurate. And so we encourage individuals to look towards official sources such as government entities, your local news media, some of those more reputable locations. And again, I'm not saying that some of our community-based groups aren't reputable, but there are times where information can be misconstrued. And if the information hasn't come from an official source, it can really cause a lot of chaos and confusion. So making sure that you're staying informed and up to date about what's happening around you through local media, government websites, social media sites that are trusted. And there are some popular applications out there that you can download to your phone that also provide information about evacuations and where those can be found. Again, we talked about having the emergency plan and the go kit of supplies ready to go. Act early. Again, if you have people in your home who are maybe medically compromised or unable to move quickly, maybe it's time to evacuate your home at a level 1 or a level 2 and not wait for the emergency go signal. Planning early really helps individuals to make sure that everyone stays safe, and that's the goal here. Also, I would say that those of you who have livestock and large animals and pets at your home, this level 1 is really the time to begin planning that process of like, where am I going to take my cows? Where am I going to take my horses, my sheep, and all of the things? And so this is a really good time to begin the process of moving your livestock and pets somewhere safe in the event that things continue to degrade. Next slide, please. So B set level 2. During the B set stage, when we get to this area, we're starting to enter a significant danger area. And so this, again, is the time to follow that emergency plan, making sure you have your kit and what direction you're going to leave. During emergencies, conditions obviously can change. And so roadways may become closed. So I know for myself, oftentimes I go home the same way every single day. And there are alternate routes, but as creatures of habit, we tend to go the same direction every single time. During an emergency, your preferred method of entry and leaving your home may be compromised, and you may need to have alternate plans of evacuation. This is, again, a good time to stay informed about what's happening around you, making sure that you have thought these things through and you're ready to leave. Again, checking the news media, staying informed, making sure that you have told other people, friends, family, about what your evacuation plans are. In the event that you have to leave your home, where do you intend to go? How can people contact you? And understand that at this level, at the B set at the B set level 2 stage, conditions can change very, very rapidly. And again, if you feel unsafe, now is the time to leave. You don't have to wait for someone to tell you when to leave. Next slide, please. All right, and level 3 is the go now. This is when the recommendation is coming in that you leave immediately. This is not the time to be gathering things, not the time to be working on loading up all of your livestock. All of those things should have been done prior to this level. And again, emergency services may not have time to tell you or be able to give you much time when we reach this level 3. So at this point, it is highly, highly encouraged that you leave without delay. We're telling you that this is an unsafe area to stay, and you really should consider leaving your home. Again, don't stop to gather belongings. That should have been done previously. Taking time to protect your home. Again, hopefully that's part of your preparedness level and you've done that prior. Because again, we've reached this area that we feel is highly critical, and we're telling you that you may need to leave, or that you should leave now. Emergency services may not be able to reach you if you decide to stay. You have to understand you're taking a significant risk and significant danger in that emergency services may not be able to come in and help you if you choose to stay at this point in time. Again, we don't want individuals returning until we have announced that it's safe to do so. So again, continue to monitor the situation. This can be a very stressful time. And so make sure that you are staying informed. If it's too much, too much is going on for you, maybe designate a friend or a family member to monitor those conditions for you, and making sure that you stay informed. Next slide, please. So in an emergency, how do you get notified? This is a very good question, and there are a number of ways that emergency services can notify you of an evacuation. One of the most important, next slide, is to sign up for Douglas Alerts. Douglas Alerts is the software that we use here at Douglas County to send emergency notifications out to residents. Landline phone numbers are already registered in the system, but it's very important that if you have a voice over internet protocol or a VoIP phone, or you depend on a cell phone as your primary method of communication to register for Douglas Alerts, you can do that online at our website at www.dcso.com/alerts. If you don't have a computer at home, or if you're just not tech savvy, feel free to give us a call. We'll help manually register you. We're happy to do that. You can call us at 541-440-6140. Again, that's 541-440-6140. Douglas Alerts is a fantastic tool. It is one of the tools that we can utilize to reach a mass number of people very, very quickly. The important part is to register before the emergency and not wait during the emergency. During the emergency, the system can get overloaded at times with other people trying to register. It's never too late, but the time to prepare, again, is before the emergency. So we really encourage you to register your profile and keep that up to date. If you move, you have the ability to log in and change the information at any point in time. You have the ability to set your preferred methods of communication, whether that's by text message, phone call, email. There's a number of ways that you can do that, and you have complete control over what information you receive and how you receive it. Next slide, please. Again, I just want to touch on, look to official sources for evacuation information. There have been numerous times during emergencies where misinformation gets out there, and what that does is it causes panic and confusion. And so again, please look to those official sources for evacuation information as it comes. Next slide, please. The other great tool that we have here at the county, and we've got a fantastic team of individuals who work together very closely during emergencies. Another great tool that we have is this evacuation map. This is an interactive evacuation map. We do this in coordination with our emergency management department and the Douglas County GIS division. And what we do is we upload real-time information into the evacuation map. So at any point in time, you can go to this link, which is www.dcso.com/evacuations, and you can look up real-time information. Oftentimes when we put out an evacuation notice, we give a general description because we can only put so much information into the alert that some folks go, does that include me? What about my home at such and such address? This is where you can go to get that information and get that exact answer. So if you visit this website, next slide, please, you can find yourself at this map, and you'll notice in the upper left corner is a red box, and you can enter your address in this box. And it will populate, and then it will zoom into your address. All of our evacuation codes on this map are color coded, just like you have seen today. Green for ready, yellow for set, and then red for go. So you can type in your address, it will zoom into your address, and it will specifically tell you whether or not you are included in the evacuation zone. It does take a little bit of time for this to update from time to time, but we try to get this updated as quickly as possible and oftentimes prior to the evacuation. So again, this is how you can verify whether or not your specific address is in a evacuation zone. We do request that you poke around on this website. you can log on today and just kind of play with it and see how the map works. It is a great tool in order to interact and understand what's going on around you, and what types of emergencies are happening around your home. Next slide, please. So we're here to help. You can contact us at the Douglas County Sheriff's Office by calling us at our main phone number, 541-440-4450. Or you can email us at douglasalerts@douglascountyor.gov. Again, we want to make sure that you have the ability to register for Douglas Alerts. If you're having difficulty doing that yourself, give us a call. We're happy to help. If you're unable to reach us, you can always contact Douglas County Emergency Management at their phone number at 541-440-6025, or you can email Emily Ring, Douglas County's emergency manager. The last thing before we go, I know we're focused on wildfire evacuations today, but it's important to understand that the Ready, Set, Go model is for all hazards, all types of emergencies, whether that's flooding, wildfire, or other hazards in your area. Again, this is why we really encourage the registration with Douglas Alerts. That's all I have for now, and I'm going to stick around for questions at a later time. So thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Brad. We really appreciate it. We do have some questions in the chat, which we'll get to at the end of this. Some good questions that I can't answer, so we'll get to those later. I want to introduce Rachael Pope now from DFPA. So I'll hand it off to you, Rachael.
First and foremost, I want to thank Douglas Public Health Network for coordinating this and bringing all these subject experts together in this platform to deliver this directly to you during the lunch hour. I also want to bring awareness that May is Wildfire Prevention Month, and I want to thank everybody that has attended this to participate. Just you here gathering this information and knowledge and bringing that to other folks is highly important for us, so thank you. Next slide, please. So I'm Rachael Pope. I'm with DFPA, or Douglas Forest Protective Association. We protect 1.6 million acres of the Douglas District. For you that don't know that, we are wildfire protection. We protect everything from the northern border, which is about Curtin to Cottage Grove, down south to Glendale. To the east, our boundaries end at the Umpqua National Forest. And to the west, it ends about Camas Valley area and Scottsburg off the 138. We have different state and association districts that also have their own regulations, and I'll get into that as we move further through our slides. So our number one focus is to safeguard life, to promote practical prevention, and to aggressively fight those wildland fires through fire suppression. Next slide, please. I want to bring everybody's awareness of what the fire season outlook looks like for the Douglas District. Our rain totals are currently trending at 24% below normal, which is about 7 inches below normal. What does that mean to everybody? The fuels are dry, the soils are dry, irrigation may be impacted by drought, and there may be a potential for early fire season start. Douglas County did announce within this last week that we are in an emergency drought situation. So please take that into consideration with the potential for our upcoming fire season this year. Next slide, please. Also looking at our snow tell, or the snow that we've received out in the Cascades, it's severely 92% less than our normal average. So we've only received 8% snowpack, which also, again, contributes to that high drought that we're in right now, to the fire risk that is out there on the landscape, the possibility for early season wildfires. Again, irrigation impact to farmers and livestock, water shortages, impact to wildlife, and highly susceptible to lightning-caused fires. What does that mean? If a lightning fire happens out in the Umpqua National Forest, even though that's not within DFPA's jurisdiction, that could have an impact to resources that are available for us to utilize on any fires that might happen within our protection areas. So these are a lot of things that we want to bring awareness to the public. Next slide. Talking about wildfire and talking about the possibilities of the natural contributors to fires happening, such as lightning, things that we cannot prevent. Human-caused fires are something that we can prevent. In 2025, 80% of wildfires in the Douglas District were human caused, which burned 312 acres. Over the 10-year average for the Douglas District, human caused fires contributes to 655 fires, which have burned a total of 14,266 acres. When we're looking at those fires, the number one cause of those fires is equipment use. Vehicle fires is within that category of equipment use, since we have the I-5 corridor along the Douglas District, as well as the 42 that heads out to the coast, the 138 that heads out to the coast, the 138 that heads out into the Umpqua National Forest, into our beautiful forest area with waterfalls. We have a lot of trailers that are towing boats, campers, RVs that contribute to those vehicle caused fires. Right now, as we're outside of fire season, a huge contributor to the fires that we're fighting outside of the standard fire season are escape debris burns. And recreationists also contribute to a high number of fires that are caused. And under that recreationist, there is the unhoused population that is in that category. So that could be warming fires that contribute to the fires that we're fighting. Next slide, please. I'm not going to touch too much on the defensible space because Kelsey did a great job at covering that information, but I do want to emphasize, we know wildfire season is coming. We know that human caused fires are a high percentage. We know that lightning is fires that are caused that we can't prevent, but defensible space is critical to things that you can do to help limit the impact to your homes. Next slide. We talked about the number one cause of fires within our district is due to vehicle caused fires. I want to emphasize vehicle maintenance, especially since we're in the month of May right now. We have time to prepare for that fire season that is coming up. Maintaining your exhaust system is very important. Worn catalytic converters and other exhaust parts can cast hot carbon particles into dry roadside vegetation. As it starts to heat up and temperatures increase and relative humidity goes down, you'll see those fuels along the highway start to dry up. And that is where we get a lot of sparks that cause those fires that can either be contained to that roadside or take off and get into the trees. And that's when we're dealing with fires like milepost 98 that happened in 29024. You want to check your tire pressure. Driving on exposed wheel rims will throw sparks. You want to capture sparks. So even OHVs or ATVs or off-road vehicles, motorcycles, dirt bikes must be equipped with clean spark arresters. Always operate motorized vehicles on established roads and trails. Again, you want to stay off those roads with that dry vegetation because that exhaust and that heat can catch it on fire. You want to maintain your brake pads. Brakes worn too thin may cause metal-to-metal contact, which can cause sparks. We see a lot of vehicles that are traveling up Roberts Mountain or climbing incline and then slamming on the brakes, causing those sparks. And again, those sparks are going to catch in that vegetation and cause fire. Avoid that dry grass. That hot exhaust parts can ignite fires on contact. Never park, drive, or idle over tall, dry grass or brush. Pull over on gravel or paved surfaces. And please, no dragging chains, no dragging metals. Metal tow chains and car parts dragging on the roadway throw sparks. Just pay attention. Check your chains every time you're towing anything. If you see anybody else dragging those chains, just try to bring awareness to it and try to carry an ABC 2.5 pound or larger fire extinguisher in your vehicle during fire season. Even if you're not starting the fire, we've had a lot of public Samaritans that have pulled over and put out fires on the roadways, and it was out and extinguished before we were even arrived to the scene. So thank you to everybody for their due diligence for that. Next slide. Yard debris burning. As I mentioned, yard debris burning contributes to a lot of human caused fires throughout the district. I want to bring awareness to this and to use extreme caution, especially as our temperatures are increasing throughout this week and into the next following weeks before we go into fire season. Once we are in fire season, we shut down debris burning completely for all public. But right now, since public is not restricted for yard debris and everybody is cleaning up their yards before the onset of fire season, please follow safe burning practice. Consider alternatives like composting, chipping, or recycling. If you are going to burn only natural vegetation, never garbage, plastics, or hazardous materials. Keep piles small and manageable. The larger the pile, the more fire you're going to create, the higher the flames are going to be, the more vegetation around the area is susceptible to burning, even your house or anything that's flammable. So keep those piles small and manageable. Clear down at least a 10-foot trail around the area that you're going to burn. Make sure there's no flammable vegetation in that area. And that trail that you make sure it's down to mineral soil around that burn pile. Have a shovel and a charged water source on site, ready to go. If something can happen, you can suppress it. And stay with your fire until it is completely out. Don't light stuff and then go in your house and eat a sandwich before leave your burn pile. Please stay with it. Make sure it's out. And once it's done burning, make sure it's turned and that heat in the interior source is eradicated and no more heat is left. So always check burn piles to ensure they are fully extinguished. Old piles can smolder and reignite on warm, windy days. Next slide. Know what the regulations are before you go. Before heading outdoors and starting any activity, know the rules. Public use restrictions and fire dangers levels vary by district and by agency jurisdiction. So these are a lot of the questions that I received during fire season. So within DFPA or Douglas Forest area that we protect, we are in state regulated areas. We have a 4-tier public use restriction and fire danger levels. That's green with low, blue with moderate, yellow with high, and red with extreme. With that, there's different restrictions that we're going to implement with different precautions that we put in place for the fire danger levels. If you're traveling into federal lands or the Umpqua National Forest or the Rogue Siskiyou National Forest or other different national federally protected areas, they're going to have different public use restrictions that they're going to implement that coordinates with different fire danger levels. Also, if you're traveling from state to state, there's different restrictions. There's different agencies that are going to implement that. So check conditions and restrictions before you head out and determine where you will be recreating. Even if you're crossing the state line, ensure to follow all restrictions to avoid human-caused fires. Know the contact information for each agency or the websites that you can follow and be notified of level changes. Even if you're going on vacation and heading out to Hawaii, make sure you know what those emergency alert systems are and get signed up so you're aware. Okay, next slide. The Douglas District regulations. The 2026 public use restrictions on lands protected by DFPA include no debris burning, fireworks or tracer ammunition at any time. So once we go into fire season, these are the things that are being implemented right away. Campfires are allowed only at designated sites. There are specific designated sites that we have a list that you can have a fire at within those campfire rings. They do have fire watch available and on site. We do not permit individuals to have campfires within their home. Motor vehicles are restricted to improved roads, just like we talked about earlier with the vegetation that could catch on fire. Once that fire danger level is on the district, we are restricting motor vehicles to only be operated on those improved roads. Equipment use and mowing are limited by fire danger levels and time of day. So specifically when we're looking at power chainsaw use and we're looking at mowing lawns, there's going to be times that it's going to be allowable based off of that fire danger level. That's going to be based on the different levels of low, moderate, high, and extreme. For more detailed information on what those times are, you could go to dfpa.net. I also have mailers that are going out and being distributed this year to about 12,000 residents throughout the Douglas District that will receive these new public use restrictions. You can also always stop by the office. We're at 1758 Northeast Airport Road if you would like to pick up a physical copy. And I am always handing these out at all the in-person events that we are attending. Next slide, please. So thank you for attending. It's very important that you take action now while we're in the month of May. Stay informed, sign up for all of those websites, especially follow the information that our Undersheriff Brad Odell recommended by following those specific government and local agencies, so you're receiving the correct information. If you need more information, you can give me a call at the office. It's 541-672-6507. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Douglas FPA, and you can follow our website at dfpa.net. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. That's very helpful. And I'll put the link into the public use restrictions PDF.
Perfect.
Great. Our next speaker is Alicia Christiansen, and she's going to talk a bit about plants.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I was asked to speak about fire-resistant plants for home landscapes today. So we'll go ahead and dive into that. Next slide, please. As mentioned, I'm Alicia Christiansen. I'm with the OSU Extension Service in Douglas County. If you haven't visited with us before, we offer a lot of really wonderful resources on a lot of different topics for the public and landowners in Douglas County. I cover forestry, so if you ever have forestry specific questions, you can reach out to our office. Next slide, please. So why should you care about fire-resistant plants? Many homeowners want a landscape around their home that is aesthetically pleasing, creates privacy, complements their home, and has variation in color, flowers, foliage. But considering what we know and what we've heard today about the importance of defensible space, it's really important to also consider the flammability of the plants that are around your home when you're selecting which plants to include. You can reduce fuel and fire hazards around your home just by including fire-resistant plants in the landscape around it. But equally important to that are proper plant placement, the spacing, and ongoing plant maintenance. When you combine all these practices, it can help protect your home from a fire by blocking intense radiant heat, reducing direct contact with flame, and reducing the chance that embers will ignite your home. Alternatively, if you have flammable plant material in your landscape, that can increase your fire risk directly around your home. Next slide. So what are fire-resistant plants? These are plants that don't readily ignite from a flame or other ignition sources. They can be damaged or even killed by fire. However, they tend to produce fewer embers, which is, as we heard from Kelsey, the most common cause for homes burning in wildfires. The foliage and stems of these plants don't contribute significantly to fuel and fire intensity. And there are several other significant factors that influence fire characteristics of these plants. And that includes things like the plant moisture content, the age of the plant, the total volume, and then how much dead material does it have, and what are the chemical components of that plant. In general, most healthy deciduous shrubs and trees are fire resistant. And also, it's really important to point out that fire resistant doesn't mean fireproof. So even fire resistant plants will burn if they're not maintained. So it's very important to make sure that you're watering and pruning your plants to keep them healthy. Next slide. So a couple examples of plants that we find very commonly in the home landscape are arborvitae and spreading or upright juniper. These are both very flammable plants. And as you can see from the photo, when the vegetation is cut away, you can see that the inside of these plants is very dry and takes up a large percentage of that plant volume. And then the chemicals within that plant also make it readily, easily able to ignite in the event of a fire. So it's very important, if you're going to select these to landscape with, do not plant them directly around your home. Pay attention to those zones that were mentioned earlier. Next slide. So just a little bit of a comparison between fire-resistant and highly flammable plants. You'll see plants like this serviceberry pictured here. They have open and loose branching patterns with wide, moist leaves. The sap is watery. It doesn't have much sap. And then it will accumulate little to no dead wood or material on the plant itself, which is totally opposite of highly flammable plants that do accumulate that dead material on the plant, and it stays on the plant. The plants may contain volatile waxes, terpenes, oils, which you often know that they have that because there's a strong odor, and those things are highly flammable. So the bark also might be papery or loose. Those are all characteristics of plants that are likely more highly flammable that you should avoid having in your landscape. Next slide. So when selecting fire-resistant plants, we highly recommend turning to a resource that OSU Extension produced called Fire-Resistant Plants for Home Landscapes. And a link to that just popped into your chat. So you can click right on that to view the publication and download it for free. You can also scan the QR code on the screen here to download it for free. But what this publication does is it really dives in to these fire-resistant characteristics, and then it has over hundreds of plants that you can select to plant in your landscape to help create a more fire-resistant landscape. There's a lot of helpful information provided about these plants, and you'll see some screenshots of the publication later on. So you'll kind of know what to expect. Everything in here was developed from scientific literature on plant flammability, and it includes plants that are adapted to grow in both irrigated and non-irrigated landscapes, which is really nice. And while plant selection is very important, so is design and spacing. So you want to avoid placing any plant material within 5 feet of the home. I saw a question in the chat about that earlier. I'll say it again, very important for defensible space to not have plant material within 5 feet of your home. From that 5 foot to 30-foot zone, include plants that are well maintained and adequately spaced, allowing about 10 feet or more between groups of plantings. And then reduce your ladder fuels underneath taller trees by making sure that tall grass, shrubs, and smaller trees are not growing beneath the canopy of larger trees. Also, if you have trees near your home, make sure they're at least 10 to 15 feet away. The branches themselves are 10 to 15 feet away from your home. Next slide. So with my remaining couple of minutes, I'm going to share a few plants in these different categories that the publication covers, just to give you a taste of what species you might be interested in including in your fire-resistant landscape. So first, we'll talk about ground covers. So these are low-growing perennials that often provide excellent coverage on slopes. They help aid in erosion control, and they provide interesting foliage and beautiful flowers. Generally, they're 12 inches or less in height. If you plant ground covers, be careful to not let them run together. That way you create these natural fuel breaks between them. So next slide, please. There are 21 ground covers listed in the publication I've highlighted, and many of them are great for rock gardens, and they have low water requirements. I've just put a few here on the screen. You'll find rock cress and creeping phlox, which are a couple native options, very common. Another is poppy mallow, which is great because it stays pretty low to the ground, 6 to 8 inches. However, probably one of the best ground covers that you could choose is sedum or stonecrop. This is a native, and it's one of the most fire-resistant choices in our area because it has succulent foliage, so it has a high water content. Also, butterflies and bees frequent sedum, and it's a really important source of nectar for them. It's definitely one to consider planting in your fire-resistant landscape. Next slide. Going up in scale, looking at perennials. So these are plants that survive 2 or more years in your landscape. They'll often die back in the winter and emerge again in the spring. And there's a variety of colors, textures, shapes, and sizes that you can choose from with perennial plants. It's really important, though, that maintenance piece I talked about. You want to remove that dieback on the plants in the fall to reduce your fuel load, and then design your landscape with breaks between clusters of plants to break up that fuel continuity around your home. Next slide. There are 60 perennials provided in this publication. So there are a lot of really great fire-resistant choices to choose from. I've highlighted a few here, the first being Black-Eyed Susan. It's pretty low maintenance, pretty easy to grow. Lots of folks have that one. Bleeding Heart is a really beautiful, striking native perennial, and it has these heart-shaped flowers that are very pretty. Columbine is another great source, and there's a lot of varieties and colors available. These do really well in partial shade, which will help increase their drought tolerance, which is great if you're trying to have a more drought-tolerant landscape. And then last, yarrow, that's another native to consider. They're drought tolerant, they're long blooming, and they're really a nice addition if you like to do cut or dried flowers. They're a great option for that. Next slide. Broadleaf evergreens. So this is a group of plants that retain their leaves through the winter months. They're evergreen. Their foliage may take on a winter color and then green up again in the spring. If it's a dry winter, you want to water them. Next slide. 12 of them are offered in the publication. Very commonly around here, you're going to see Pacific rhododendron, kinnikinnick, Oregon grape, and Oregon boxwood. And I would just point out, I think everyone who has the option should plant an Oregon grape in your yard, as it's the state flower for Oregon. Also, they produce some berries that are edible, yet very tart, so be aware. And they can be used to make jams, jellies, pie filling, even wine. Next slide, please. Shrubs, these are woody plants that produce branches from the base. They don't have a tree-like growth habit with a single stem. They often can serve as ladder fuels if planted under the canopy of trees. So they should be avoided, and that should be avoided in a fire-wise landscape, creating ladder fuels. So you really want to consider their placement and spacing for effective fire-wise design. Next slide. There are 30 shrubs listed in the publication that are fire-resistant choices. These ones on the screen are all fairly common for our area. Russian sage has a really low water requirement. Western azalea is all over Douglas County, known for its beautiful masses of flowers, but be aware all parts of that plant are poisonous. So just keep that in mind. Mock orange is another really nice native that's frequented by hummingbirds. And then red osier dogwood, that's a fast-growing shrub. It's found in riparian areas, so it likes a little more water. Again, important things to keep in mind. You'll notice these are excerpts from that publication. There are icons at the bottom of each category that indicate water requirement, sunlight requirement, if they have certain species that frequent them. So there's a lot of really helpful information provided. Next slide, please. Trees. So ornamental trees are usually smaller than shade trees, and they add variety to the landscape. And some deciduous species, which shed their leaves in the fall, can reduce heat and slow the spread of fire and block embers. These trees can provide showy flowers, decorative fruit, attract fall color, and winter texture. And shade trees provide excellent fall color and cool your home in the summer, which is a big plus. You'll notice that both in the publication or in my next slide, there aren't any conifer trees listed, which are trees like our Douglas fir or cedars, conifer trees. And that is because conifers typically have more fire-prone characteristics, such as resin, that do not lend themselves well to a fire-wise landscape. So if you choose to have a conifer on your landscape, plant it away from your home, ideally 30 plus feet away from it, with no other plant material surrounding that tree. And then as always with any tree that you have, make sure that there are no limbs touching your roof, siding, other structures. Next slide. So there are 31 trees listed in the publication that are awesome fire-resistant choices. In the Umpqua Valley, we are known here for being a great habitat for Oregon white oak. So if you are at a lower elevation and have a drier site, this is an excellent native option to plant. If you're looking for a faster growing tree, you could consider Western or California sycamore. Cascara is a nice tree that can be a little smaller in size, and same with flowering dogwood, but that one can be tough to grow in an urban landscape. Next slide. So I breezed through all of that really fast. Please do download that publication. I appreciate your time here today. If you have questions about fire-resistant plants, please reach out to me or our office. We're happy to help. All the contact info is on your screen. You can take a picture of it. And we're also located downtown next to the courthouse if you want to pay us a visit. And if you're interested in attending a workshop on gardening, forestry, farming, food preservation, and more, you can scan the QR code on your screen and visit our website to learn more about our programs, and then reach out to our office to sign up for any of our newsletters. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Alicia. And thank you to all of our panelists. This was just chock full of really helpful information about fire season and preparation. I know we're right at the 1 o'clock, so I'm going to announce our next webinar and then ask if we've got a couple of questions in the chat, if our speakers can stay for maybe a couple minutes. Our next webinar will be June 12th, and it's going to be on summer water safety. So we're going to hear specifically about recreational water, outdoor water safety. We're going to hear about sort of backyard water safety for kids and children. We're going to hear from a vet to talk about safety for blue-green algae for our pets. And then we're also going to hear from a pediatrician about childhood safety around water. So please join us again. Look at our website on June 12th. So a couple questions in the chat. There was a question about, I think this is directed at Brad, about is there any way to test if your phone number is working? Somebody said that maybe their number had changed over from a previous landline. Should they just call the sheriff's office and find out if the number is in there?
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways. If you login information to access your profile on Everbridge, you're more than welcome to log in that way. and you can do what we call a health check, make sure that all of your information is current and up to date. If you're not able to access it, give us a call. We're happy to log in, take a look at that for you and see what information is in there and provide you with the next steps.
Great, thank you. There's also a question about the map that you recommended. Does that include addresses outside of Douglas County, or is that a Douglas County exclusive thing?
That is a Douglas County specific feature. If you live outside of Douglas County, I would recommend that you contact your emergency management department for the county in which you reside, and they should be able to tell you whether or not that's a function that is available in your county.
Great. We also had a question or comment about neighbors and possibly using fireworks. I'm not sure who wants to address that, but are there ways to address that, particularly during fire season?
It's going to depend on your jurisdiction. If you are living within city limits, let's say you live in Roseburg and fireworks are allowed, you want to check with your Roseburg Fire Department. If you're in areas that we are the protection agency and they are violating the fire season restrictions that are in place, you're going to want to go ahead and call 911, and then they will dispatch the nearest authority to that call.
Great. Thanks, Rachel.
No problem.
I think there was one question also about eucalyptus and whether or not that was a really highly flammable plant.
Yes, eucalyptus is highly flammable, both the bark and the leaves. It contains a lot of oil in there that's very flammable, and then the bark sheds quite a bit. So that's one of the ones that you would want to have spaced well out into your landscape and definitely not near your home.
Great. I think that covers most of our questions. I did put in the chat Alicia's guide that that is on this QR code. I also put a link to DFPA so that you can find that public use restrictions. I also put a link in for our Douglas Public Health Network planning preparedness page, which has our Umpqua Prepared Guide on it, which is a great resource you can download that in English and Spanish on our website. And then a couple other resources in there. So look at the chat. And then again, it has been recorded, so we will be putting it on our website probably in the next couple of weeks, but watch your email in case you are a winner of one of our 4 fabulous baskets that all of our speakers here helped to put together for us. So thank you again to all our great panelists, and it's a wealth of information, and I have a long laundry list of things I need to do for my place. So thank you so much for your time today, and I hope you all have a great day.